Good afternoon. This is Hayden Gibby, and I'll be going over case 8.1 for Accounting Ethics Seminar class. This case is entitled Research Triangle Software Innovations. So I'll be going somewhat over the ethical questions and issues that are involved in this case. As a quick overview, I'm going to summarize the case real quick. We have an accounting firm, Tar & Hill in North Carolina, who provides various services for two companies in the area, Oak Manufacturing and Research Triangle Software Innovations. Steve Michaels is over Oak's Manufacturing. He's reviewing some software to prepare for an audit and notices that they selected a software from Research Triangle, who is also a client of Tar & Hill. Steve pulls in Roseanne Field, who was over that decision-making process, and asks why this decision was made. It was revealed that while she had fairly judged each software companies out there, that ultimately the decision to go with Research Triangle was made by her senior, Gary Booth. He felt that by making this decision that it would benefit his client, make him feel good, want to continue to work with him and have additional services. Obviously, Steve was very upset with this and decides to pull both of them into a room for a meeting. And so in these next few questions, we're going to ask ourselves as though we are Roseanne in this situation. First, what is at stake for the key parties, including the firm? Well, first off, for the firm, public perception. The accounting firm can be seen that people that they pull to their clients, that they give favors to each other. They might see that, hey, if I work with him and I know that, we'll just go back to Oak's Manufacturing, but if a totally different company wanted to work with Oak's, they could potentially just get, advisory services from Tar & Hill once, and then they can get a deal with Oak's, So this whole public perception of like what an accounting firm should do becomes skewed by going with this deal. What's at stake for Oak Manufacturing? They get a somewhat decent software that might not fit their needs. It didn't score number one with Roseanne, and so who's to say that it's actually going to work out for them? What if the software that was number one actually works out better? For Research Triangle, there's really nothing too intensive for this firm that's at stake. They're pretty happy. They're just kind of stuck in the middle. I mean, if I was them, I would be very stoked to work with Tar & Hill for the next year. I just got a pretty big deal. Let's go on to some of these employees at the accounting firm. Steve Michaels. I anticipate that during this upcoming audit, this transaction will come up and Steve will have to explain why this happens. This can lead to a conflict of interest, and he might be forced to disengage with the client. Roseanne Fields, it could be her job. She's pretty low level, still working up in the firm, but that reputation can carry with her throughout the firm. Gary Booth, his job, but more importantly, he has inadvertently created a liability for the firm. This decision and brass choice he made can affect his job and overall in the firm. What are the likely positions of Steve and Gary? I think Steve will call it all off. He said, this is unacceptable. We can't be doing favors for our clients that would benefit other clients. This looks like a firm that thinks for his clients than it does of being a professional accounting firm. Now, Gary's position, he could argue that he advised based on his own basis of self-knowledge and recommended Research Triangle as the software provider. With them being local, he could argue that this would be very convenient for Oak Manufacturing. This is something they're not familiar with, so having someone really close to being on site would be very beneficial. So he's got a lot of arguments that can go against him, but what would I say to those positions? I'm going to say them later on, but I'll just say it now. I think Steve has the power to kind of override this whole situation, and he can really nip this right where it needs to be. Any levers? I think that the biggest lever that Roseanne has is that data and that, I don't know if it's a spreadsheet or we'll just call it a report. That report that she gathered that lists all the four softwares and all based on these different criterias and whatnot. And that I think is a big lever to, I signed off on this. This was my recommendation that I gave to my senior Gary, and he decided to go elsewhere. I think that's the biggest lever. And I think in this situation that the most powerful persuasive response can be, like I just said, to tell Steve to take the initiative, to do what is right to maintain the professionalism of the firm, and really hopefully override Gary's decision that he made. Now, some additional thoughts. What is Steve's leadership style in this situation? I think it's very laissez-faire. It seems like something that he just came up with, noticed, brought him in. Is it appropriate to bring them all on the table? I don't think so. Is it really his responsibility to oversee this? Are they two different departments? I think there's more questions that need to be answered before we can determine what his style is. Now let's assume that Steve decides to support Gary's explanation. What would Roseanne do? I think she needs to go to a compliance department, HR. In these kind of structural firms, there has to be some kind of way that we can, identify something, let someone know, and kind of have an external report done on this to make sure that we're really in compliance. Is this really in the line with the vision of the company? Is this what the accounting firm wants to be perceived at? And lastly, has there been any violations of the AICPA Code of Professional Conduct? Absolutely. We shouldn't be doing personal favors for each other, to the clients, and to benefit them. This is the opposite of professional. This is being buddy-buddy, helping them out. So in conclusion, what would you do if you were in Roseanne's shoes, and would you just go with it, or would you make it a point of recommendation to be strong and firm in the meeting in what you feel is appropriate as a professional accountant? This was a very interesting case, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and thank you for now. See you later.